Welcome back to the show. I'm so excited to chat with my guest, Kayla, today. So, would love to have you start off by telling us who you are and what you do in the events industry.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I'm a huge fan of the podcast. So not to fangirl, but I am. So my name is Kayla Worthy. I have been in the event industry for well over a decade. Currently, I am a senior event manager for a corporate company. I also have a event coaching business as well as a podcast host for the Feel Worthy podcast. So doing a lot of different things within the industry that I love. So anywhere from corporate events to coaching event professionals on how to just level up if they are looking for a podcast. We'll change out of that. If they're looking for how to get a promotion or level up in their career, learn new leadership skills, definitely I'm the person for it. So excited to be here.
Amazing. And I mean, I'm always jealous of people who have a great name that just like fits their brand automatically. You don't even need to. I have a friend, I'll give him a little shout out. His last name is Good, and he is Good Law. And and usually like you're not allowed to do that, but it's his name. So it's great. But I think like, your the Feel Worthy podcast, your account on Instagram, that's how we originally met. I think there is so much behind that as event people because we're so often like pouring into other people, pouring into events, pouring into our family. Because we are the people that have it all together, quote unquote, or at least look like it, I think a lot gets put on us, right? Because we handle stress very well, or at least from the outside seem to handle stress really well. So I think there's so much power behind the feeling worthy because I know that for myself, working in a number of different roles, I often felt like this like outsider of the marketing team or the sales team and like kind of on like this little lonely island that didn't quite fit anywhere and no one really knew what I was doing and they just like I mentioned this on a recent podcast, like I've only once in my entire 15-year career had a manager that was actually an event manager. Everyone else was VP of marketing, VP of sales, like that kind of directors of not events, right? And so it's really hard to show your worth in organizations when people don't really understand what you're doing.
Oh, I can completely relate to that. And if this is on YouTube or you're seeing me writing notes, it's because one, I'm an avid note taker, and I was like, I don't want to lose something you said, and also, I just will anyway jog my memory. But you always see me with a pen and paper in hand. Um, I think it's so spot on what you said, and my coworkers have historically said like we're all on an island, but I'm on Cozumel and they're on like some other island, but they're like, you're like the fun island. We come and visit and then we go away. And which, because of events have seasons, right? And there's
Yeah.
always a time where, and for me, it was our big global conference that everyone is in part of and helping and plan and execute. And then after a while, they kind of forget about me. And then it comes right back time to plan and execute again. And then they visit the fun island and then they go away. So when you said that, I was like, oh my gosh, we've actually had this conversation among my peers where that's exactly what it feels like. And I have been lucky where I've had a couple bosses who actually understand the event industry and understand what I'm doing, but because they've lived it before in their past life of being in events or in marketing, which has been so critical and so helpful because for those that don't know what you're doing, if they are just in a marketing world, it's hard to sometimes have them be in your shoes of all of the different pillars that you're juggling or you're trying to bring together and unite to create this one cohesive experience. So when they get it, it's like a breath of fresh air, and you're like, oh, okay, I don't have to explain how daunting it is to get a last minute. And I was listening to one of your previous episodes, like to get the creative last minute and then turn it into signage and then also talk to FedEx about hey, I need it by this day. And they're like, well, you should have gotten it to me 6 weeks ago. And I'm like, but I'm trying to explain it to someone who doesn't understand
Yeah.
why I needed it at XYZ date. So it definitely feels great when they get it, but when they don't, it's always just having to just explain it a bit more, bring them into your world and make the time for that. And we're also busy. So I think that's where it gets hard to have to redefine that for someone else. But the whole concept about feeling worthy in the podcast itself is exactly what you said is one, it's a community where people can understand each other, right? Like in event pros, we're in such a niche category that when someone does understand it, it's refreshing. But then there's so much else that we're dealing with that behind the scenes that sometimes we don't talk about, or we don't even know where to begin because we're so busy. We're like, how do I even address my real life when work life is at the forefront? And I'm always just trying to make my clients happy or trying to solve and put out another fire. So it's from someone who gets it, but then also two other people that I hope they can resonate and it hits them wherever they need it most. So if it's about a health topic, then it's a place that they can learn about that and then explore further on their own. If it's about leadership, it's a place that they can self feel worthy of, like, okay, I can show up as this best leader and it's directed to me versus it being about just corporate in general or just freelance in general. It's really supposed to be about putting the event professional first and not just the event.
Yeah, and that can be it can be game changing when you find that community of people who do get it. And I often joke with my friends that like anything I agree to in a group chat while I'm on site, you just have to tell me about again afterwards. Like I remember my friend years ago like booked a her bridal like dress shopping, and for some reason in my brain I was like, oh yeah, we booked it for that weekend, and she's like, no, it was the weekend after. And I went back and I was like, that's what it said in the group chat. I'm like, you just have to tell me, like I was on site, like everything that happens on site, like I'm getting 10 million messages, like some things are on fire, a bunch of spam email, like I just tell me afterwards, just like we're gonna just bring it back around the next week, right?
I also need to know before you go, before the wedding dress shopping. Just keep my head straight. I get it.
Just remind me that we're going. Like I'm down. Like it's probably in my calendar, but like I might see it that week and be like, oh, right, that thing that I booked while I was on site. Like that is it's just such a like and people who don't get the on-site experience just don't get it. Like they don't get how well what do you mean you're like that behind on email? And it's like because I have to be singularly focused on if it is not on fire and sometimes quite literally, like I need to not worry about it. And I need like I once joked that I was working at a company with like a crazy amount of programs and I said to a coworker, I'm like, I almost made my out of office. Like, if your email, like, I am on site this week. If your event, if this is regarding an event after this week, like, I'll get back to you at another time. And I almost wanted to say, like, if your email is not about the event I'm at right now and it's urgent, it's not. Like, it's just not, right? But obviously, like, professionalism, like, I'm not going to put that in an email, but it's really like,
Right.
no, I can only focus on these things. And like maybe you can just schedule send your next email, right? It's very much is like all consuming when you're on site. And because we deal with such like weird things, like sometimes it's dealing with FedEx, it's literally standing in a printer's office being like, I cannot leave until you print this thing that I know you should have had weeks ago, but I didn't have it weeks ago, so you got it when I got it. Like, let's just figure it out, right? Most people can't understand, and like in the rest of the marketing team and the sales team, they just don't live it until they've lived it.
Yeah, and they have, I'm sure, other things and focuses and
Sure.
other clients that are on a different scale that they're also trying to keep up with. And even so on site, and even so my husband knows, like, he's like, I know you're gonna be busy. So we like have a certain time to check in with each other because outside of that, and the moment I leave my hotel room, it is like I'm fully focused on whatever's on site.
Yeah.
And then even the pre-planning, like even just these last 2 weeks getting registrations in right before the holidays. I have just been so inundated that even my friends know that if I'm not responding to text messages, I will come up for air around the holidays or when I can have some time. But if I'm not responding to anything, then they know, like, just they'll send like a life check or a pulse check, and I'm like, okay, heart. But then otherwise, I am just completely focused on whatever has to be done because there's so many different things coming at once, and it's hard to describe what that is like for people that don't know or have like a pretty like straightforward, like I can clock in and clock out
Yeah.
job, which I think is always hard for me to explain. Like I have, I'm juggling registration, but at the same time, the mobile app being launched. At the same time, I have
Yeah.
like the content production that has to start being worked on, and at the exact same time. So it's just my brain has all of these windows, like a browser. Like my tabs are all open at the same time. To add
Yeah.
one more, I think my computer is gonna need a reboot. So
Yeah. And I think it's true. You talked about the deadlines of things, right? And I remember during the lockdowns, I was working a role that was more of like a marketing generalist role while everything was locked down. And I remember like I was responsible for like some social and blog posts, and it's like, wow, like if this tweet doesn't go out today, it's fine. It'll go out tomorrow and that'll be okay. Whereas with events, like if it goes out tomorrow, the event's done, right? There's no moving it. And I always joke that events are projects where people show up and expect food at the end. And if you're not like, there's no changing that day once that's out there. It's not like a regular project where, yeah, it's probably not going to make that much of a difference if you just wait another day to send that out. Whereas an event like that can be be a bigger problem.
Absolutely. I was speaking with a vendor about a digital solution to use at an event, and I was asking, all the normal questions like logistics. How do we set up? What happens if something goes wrong the day of, or it blanks out, or something? Just all of the contingency plans we think of. And then they got back to me with the whatever the proposed solution was, and I was like, this doesn't sound like a backup plan. It sounds like there perhaps isn't one. And they're like, well, for small things, there is a backup plan, but for other things, there isn't. Like for bigger things, I was like, well, this seems a little bit problematic
That seems like the
considering
whole point.
if I'm using the service on the day of, and I understand if like COVID happens, a whole global shutdown happens, those are big, extreme circumstances. But even then, we start to think of the backup plans of just what happens in case. And having no solution, I can't just go to an event and live event and not have whatever that backup plan is and just think of it the day of. Like this is the one time 1,000+ people are flying in for this event. They're going to be in the room. They're coming from other countries. Like this is the one experience that if I can avoid it, I want to as much as possible, or at least know what my solutions are. So they understood, but at the same time, I think maybe thought I was being a little bit like overly cautious.
Right.
I but I think it's fair to want to have just again the backup plan in advance, just so that you're not scrambling on site and that you're not causing as much stress or
Right.
fear for anyone, right? And like your stakeholders are going to start asking me what's going on, and I was like,
Yeah.
well, I didn't have a backup plan. But anyway, we figured it out. It's just the critical point of it's the day of, right? It's the only one time to be in person all together, and you want to make it the best experience possible, which feels like it carries a lot of weight on people, or at
Yeah.
least the planner.
And sometimes I've started to preface things because I think sometimes our questions to vendors or to partners or to other people can come across as condescending because it seems so obvious. Like I recently had a conversation with a photographer, videographer team that I was bringing on site for an event. We were just doing our pre-call and just running through the high level shot list. And I said to them, I'm telling you this because I've had it happen in the past. Because
Right.
I know that you're professionals and you wouldn't do this. But I
100%.
need to make sure that, when you're taking interviews or you're taking like certain shots, that there's not a pile of dirty dishes behind the people and there's not like garbage on the table that, you turn the person to the wall and they're like, yeah, duh. I'm like, I know. I know. But again, I have received the footage of the dirty tables and the dirty dishes. And so I know you think that I'm being obvious or like, yeah, lady, this is our job. But it's because of experiences where I've had things go wrong. Or like the one I always laugh about is I do a know before you go for staff on site where I tell them, like, this is the dress code, this is what you're wearing, and bring multiple pairs of shoes. And I did this thing. And someone came up to me later and was like, did you really need to tell us to bring multiple pairs of shoes? I'm like, I promise you, if I'm telling you something, it's because I've had the experience in the past that has led me to add that. Like when you see the signs and you think, well, no, surely no one would walk into the swamp with the alligators. Well, no, there's the sign there because somebody walked into the swamp with the alligators. So like it's in my talk track for a reason because I've had the person show up with one pair of shoes that were not appropriate for being on site, that they then complained for the whole week that they didn't have any other shoes. So I'm telling you, so that we can all avoid these conversations going forward, that again might sound redundant, might sound like I'm treating you like a child, But again, it's because I've learned the lesson before, and so now you're going to learn the lesson with me again.
And that person asking the question, it may not be for them, right? And
Right,
one, I'm
sure.
glad they read it. Like, I'm glad they read it thoroughly, which is awesome. I hope everyone is reading all the know before you go.
Right.
We're putting so much time into, but it's also for the person who's not asking you, who was like, I should bring more pairs of shoes
Yeah,
and packed them and brought them with them. But because they didn't think about it. So it's never to be condescending or to be
right.
repetitive or anything. It's really because there's so many different types of learners, so many different types of people that we're working with or partnering with. And also new people are going into situations all the time. So I had a team member who it was her first time checking into a hotel. So
Yeah,
things that were obvious for a lot of our colleagues that travel, like bringing your credit card, bringing your ID to check in at a hotel, it was a brand new experience for that person. And all of us have been doing it for so long that we honestly forgot to bring that up to them
yeah,
just and also even getting like point numbers, like a reward system. So
yeah.
that is I think sometimes we take some of those things not for granted, but we overlook them because they're
No, we
just an
do.
emerging thing.
It's funny because I was thinking that exact thing of I've had folks who like they're sending me questions and I'm like, have you literally never checked into a hotel before? Like I
We're like, no,
and you forget that some people just haven't or don't or haven't done it in 10 years or haven't flown since you needed real ID or whatever
yeah.
the thing is. And especially like following the lockdowns, like there were a lot of changes to like what you needed and what you didn't need and it's just yeah, like we do take it for granted. And there's so many times, and I think like it's not just events people. Everyone takes whatever their like zone of genius is for granted. Of like, well, obviously you would do it this way, and it's like, well, it's only obvious because you've done it 100 times this year, right? Like everyone else doesn't. It doesn't seem obvious, and there's certain things like my husband will tease me about like events, and he's like, that's not like most people aren't thinking about that. I'm like, what do you mean? Oh, like, aren't they? Aren't they considering this? Why doesn't there know before you go have dress code information? Like, what am I supposed to wear to this? He's like, yeah, they're not paying attention to that.
Yeah, but I think to your point, we all have our zone of genius and
Yeah,
we're focused on that. We know that we live it, we breathe it. And for the others that think have their own zone of genius, I'm sure they're thinking about something else that we're like, oh, I would have never considered that. But it goes
all the
all in.
time. Like AV is always telling me, like, hey, did you think of this? And I said, no, that's why I have you. So that you think of it for me. So that you come to me and I say, Shenandoah, that doesn't make any sense because X, Y, and Z, or that projector is not going to do that, or that lighting is going to look weird. I'm like, that's your zone of genius. My zone of genius is making sure that you're here when I need you. And everyone else like has their zone of genius that I want them to focus on. And like I've talked to like AV vendors about getting the quotes with every chord listed out. I'm like, I don't care. Like, I'm gonna show you a pretty picture, and I want you to tell me how much it's gonna cost to make that pretty picture happen. Like, that's what I'm hiring you for, and your expertise to pull that together, right? It's very different. Like, I don't want to have to know all those things. That's why I hire great vendors and work with great people.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that goes such a long way so that we're brains are already thinking about so many other things that when we can get the right partners in the room that can show their expertise, honestly teach me a thing or two that I didn't know about,
Yeah,
like all of the different details that are on the ABO bill, just
yeah,
the quote that we're getting. I would love you to teach me because or tell me what that is, but I also don't want to always come in and like and this is why the partnerships are so great, right? Where
yeah.
everyone can bring what their expertise is, and then we can all work harmoniously together, which is
Yeah,
the
and
dream.
like learn little like I've learned so much in the last year on production and
Mhm.
AV that has just helped me when I'm asking better questions and getting and communicating better to clients on oh no, you need to think of this or oh yes we can do that but here's why you might want to think of doing it another way or here's like some challenges we might come up against if we go that route, right?
Yeah, no, it makes you a better, more informed overall event professional because they're not going to go to the AV person, right? Like that's why they
Yeah,
hired you.
yeah.
But then you're also like, you're like, I know enough to be dangerous, but not enough to like be able to just like set it all up myself.
Yes, that's exactly it. And even like when I've been show calling, which I've done a few times this year, I would say to them, because one of them got like there was one tech who like kind of got a little attitudey with me when I said, okay, we're doing this and then we're going to this. Like we're cutting from this and then like cutting from this video to this song or whatever the thing was. And he's like, I know, I know. I'm like, honestly, I'm mostly saying it out loud so that I know where we are and that
Mhm.
I'm following along and like I'm saying it out loud so that it's like in your brain and it's in my brain and I remember it better because I've said, okay, now we're doing this. And we had like a few parts in the production where we had like quick cuts that were like a little awkward and clunky that we made obviously look not awkward and clunky, but like in the run it felt very clunky. And so I'm like, I'm telling you this not because I don't think you're paying attention, but because I keep needing to remind myself so that we're on the same page because it's not an easy run.
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. And when you can explain that to them, I think it creates a better partnership because you're like, I just want to work collaboratively and understand and honest. And also, I have tendencies too, right? Like I talk out loud, and sometimes it's
Yeah.
just to get it out and not because
Yeah,
I'm
and
trying
it's that
to.
like that's how I remember. And like I'll even say to my husband, I can't even remember what I was saying to him the other day. Like we were traveling, and I think I said, I'm like, I'm telling you this so that it is out loud, so that someone else is remembering it. Like so it's not just in my brain of like I've packed the passport or whatever it was that we were doing. I'm like, this is like and I know people do that. Like I am turning off my straightener. I am turning off the oven. Right? That like it makes you think about it in a different way. Like it just makes it's a what better way of like communicating so that everybody's on the same page when we know things are gonna get crazy. Like it's gonna be quiet, 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 and then everything's gonna go like nuts, and then we're just doing, and it's working in a way that like we're all still on the same page as the pages are turning so quickly.
100%. And I even think sometimes it's a tactic that I think some people use. I think I've used it in the past where I'm like perhaps not as confident in a certain area and I may feel a little like imposter syndrome being on site. And it's just like my checklist of like maybe what I learned in the CMP or what I learned from a podcast. And I'm trying to like make sure I do everything correctly. So it's really like my own or habit I've done to just like overcome that. So I'm talking it through. I'm trying to make sure that it's being spoken out loud. And then from there, I probably won't do it as much or ever again, especially if we work together a lot. But then now I'm able to say, okay, I'm over the imposter syndrome. I've been able to just say, like, I've done it before. And then I can now speak from a place of influence or at least just collaboration to make sure that we're running a successful program. But it's again not always from a place of like I'm just trying to micromanage. I'm just trying to like again get it out and work together and take out some of the headspace I have of all the
It
other
just needs
things I'm
it
thinking
just needs
about
to
that
come out
make
of
me a
my
better
brain.
one.
Like
What was that?
it just needs to come out of my brain a little bit, right? It just needs to go live in someone else's brain. And it's
Yeah.
so funny you mentioned the CMP because my husband was cleaning up his office the other day and he left this like pile of paperwork, like huge pile of paperwork on my desk, and I was looking and I'm like, it's you, pay stubs from 15 years, like just stuff that needs to be shredded. But in that pile was all my handwritten notes from my CMP studying. Like literally just found this like 2 days ago. And I was like, I don't really need this, but they're just so well done. I feel silly throwing them out. Like I wish I knew someone to give them to because they were like highlighters and color gel marker. Because of course, right? Like if I'm gonna be studying, I want to make it fun. But I don't even still have the books because I gave them amazing because I gave the books away a couple years ago to someone who was studying, and so I didn't even know I had these notes, and they're like in a little duotang, and I opened it up, and they're like beautiful CMP study notes. So if anyone needs CMP study notes, let me know. I'm happy to throw them in the mail so that I feel good about them, all my hard work going somewhere.
Yes, have them live on and like pass them out to the next generation or the
I
next
don't
person.
even know if they're like still the same. I'm like, oh my god, I wrote my exam like 8 years ago. Like, is this even still like? I'm sure there's like things have
I think
changed.
mostly update like mine still I'm sure a lot of it is still relevant and
Yeah.
I actually I brought up the CMP too because I'm in the process of recertifying because it's now we're in the 5 years and the deadline, speaking of deadlines, is coming up and I'm like, okay, I just have to double check all of my CEs and everything
Yeah.
else, and my, what is it, my resume also, and
Oh yeah.
just get that together before that deadline, just because I like to keep
TikTok.
it current.
Yeah, I recertified in 20. I don't know. It's been a while. Like I think I do it again in next year, technically, like
Oh, okay.
2027. So
Yes.
it, I've got time. And I will say, it's completely unrelated. I was on the website recently because I wanted to put in some seem like I went to a conference and I'm like, oh, I want to put in these hours, and they've changed the site into like a very logical way, and I'm very excited because before it was very hard to keep track of my hours, and now I'm like, oh, I'm actually in a good place with my hours. I'm like, oh, I could breathe because I was like, I'm gonna like get to 2027 and be like, I need to get 25 hours in 3 weeks.
That may or may not be me right now, but it's fine. It's great. It's great. I think I'm halfway there, but yeah, the deadline is approaching, and there's just been so much this year. But I'm
I got
excited to
some
move
tips
there.
for you. I got some tips for you. After we'll talk.
Still on my way because I am excited. I mean, I know that there's been conversations like on LinkedIn about like whether or not people would recertify, but I still think it's a prevalent thing to have if you're planning events, if you're interested in that. I know for people, they feel all types of ways of whether pros or cons about it or having it or not. But for me, I'm like, I might as well. I think it's a good just symbol of just the work that I've done and
Yes.
understand the events industry.
I always say it doesn't make you a better event planner, but it tells people what kind of event planner you are without having to say it. Because I know lots of great planners who do not have their CMP or any other designation, and they're great planners. It does not take away from your skills as a planner. The
Absolutely.
reason I got it and the reason I would tell people to get it, and it's not right for everyone. Like there's some people in their careers that I would say, why would you bother? Like it's not worth the money and hassle of doing. But
Hmm.
I think that when I got it in 2017, so kind of midpoint in my career, it was enough to make me stand out on resumes. I know that there was a job interview that I went to, and she said, oh, I picked your resume because you had your CMP, because I knew that you knew the basics. Like I knew that I didn't need to teach you the how to run a budget and how to do the most basic things. It just tells people that you have the skill set that you have, that we all have, like that all planners have. It's just the it's just telling people up front, like, oh no, this person has done the been a planner for at least 3 years, has written the exam, has studied the materials. So I don't think, like, regardless of what the designation is, it's CMP, DES, CMM, like, and whatever else there is now, I don't think it makes you a better planner. I think it just tells people that you are a planner, and it tells them like what kind of planner you are. So that's always my opinion on the CMP and other designations. Like I think it was right for me at the moment. I don't know that at this moment in my career, if I didn't have it already, would I go do it? Probably not. Am I going to keep recertifying? Yes, because I already did the hard part, right? So now it's just the upkeep of it, which is like, yeah, it's money and it's time, but it's worth it enough because I've already done the hard part that I'll keep it.
Yeah, no, I think it makes sense, and I I will say when I first got it, I think it made me a slightly better planner in terms of just certain details that I didn't know, and it just made me more informed, if anything. And when I think about my career, and I remember a few years ago, and even tying this like the Feel Worthy podcast, I was learning how to negotiate more with hotels and just having those conversations. And honestly, I went into work every day like with a smile on my face, and I still do. And came off very like positive and bubbly and just like young and eager in my career. And I remember one of my leaders at the time saying, well, we're not really sending Kayla in to negotiate. Like, she's just kind of like the relationship. Like, she just kind of has the relationship, like almost like to a point of making it seem like I didn't have the skills to negotiate
Right.
or that wasn't really like my strong suit or like I look like the nice puppy dog that was going to go in and not having the strategic mindset. So that stuck with me for so long that I was like, I need to show that I'm more strategic or that I have those capabilities. And although I do think the positive attitude goes a long way, I can have that. So along the way, and even just a performance review I was having and just kind of talking about like my skills and things over the years. So leaders come back to me and say that although I can drive results, I also do it in a calm and professional manner.
Right.
So it's this intersection of like, you can be positive, you can be vulnerable a little bit, you can have people first mindset, but also have strategy, which is where I think the
Yeah.
CMP helped boost that part of my strategic appearance,
Yeah.
where at least in the corporate world, it showed a few letters. Not that I'm a
Sure.
doctor or anything like that, but it at least gave me some more of that like strategic mindset paired with this opportunity that I'm like, oh no, I do put people first. And I do think about that when I'm planning an event, whether it's the attendee or the person behind the event. Like I'm always thinking about both. So that was even like the birth of where the Feel Worthy podcast came from and how the CMP, like at least earlier in my career, made me feel like, okay, I have both. I am a bit more strategic. I have this credential that's showing that I have a skill set, even though I know it. But going even back to what we said at the beginning of the pod, explaining that to someone who may not have the event experience, kind of like tied it together for in a bow for myself in a corporate realm. But now I agree. I will keep it because I think it still shows that symbol and like stature, but different strokes for different folks. It's not gonna make or break you as an event planner.
No, and like I said, it doesn't define your skills. It just advertises them in a
Yeah.
different way. It doesn't give you the skills. It doesn't like sure you can and even like I used to volunteer on the CMP study group and I did the study group with through MPI in the Toronto area and we used to say it's like reading the driver's manual, right? The book says one thing and then what happens on the road is very different and events are the same. Like the event book is going to say to do one thing when you get on site, you're going to do what makes the most sense for when you're on site, right? So, it's that best practices versus practical application and practical and just experience of, I don't know, like the book might say that, but the textbook isn't the one living it and isn't the one like assessing the situation in real time, right?
Yeah, you can't open the textbook and say, what do I do when
Yeah.
people, like 20 people from Europe show up and you're like, I don't have
Uh-huh.
enough hotel rooms at the moment. So
Right. They're gonna say you would have had a work back schedule, and it's like, yeah, okay, like let's live in the real world.
you're like,
Let's live in the real world where I'm not getting the printing hours before I need it. Like
I did have a work pack schedule and I didn't care. Those people still showed up.
exactly, exactly. Perfect place to wrap. Right where we started. So yeah, like we're coming up to time. Like, what? Any final thoughts? And then let us know like where people can find your podcast, find you online. I know you're quite active in different parts of the internet, so tell us all about it.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. And I really love this conversation. I know we've been chatting so often on like social media, so it's great to bring it to the podcast form. But if people want to find me, or please go for it and listen to the Feel Worthy podcast. There's also social media accounts for that on Instagram and LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, I'm Kayla Worthy and comma, I'm sure CMP. So you can find me on LinkedIn and I'm very active there. And then on Instagram, I'm the Worthy Events Coach on Instagram. So I
Amazing.
look forward to everyone reaching out and talking more. Feel free to share what resonated. And thank you so much, Shenandoah, for having me on the podcast. It's been fun.
Thanks for being here.